Okay, so in this next in a series of bespoke videos for the practical, I'm going to talk about regression analysis. So hopefully you've had a look at the previous video on correlation as a basis for deciding which variables are included in the regression analysis, and this video now will take the regression analysis forward. So previously we had determined that certain variables were correlated with the outcome variable, healthy lifestyle behavior. We could cluster those variables under various headings. So we could say some of them are demographic variables, some were attitudinal variables, as operationalized from the theory of planned behavior framework. Some are personality variables, which is an additional set of variables to the theory of planned behavior. And some, the orange ones there at the bottom, were behavioral variables: emotional eating, cognitive restrained eating, uncontrolled eating, and habits. So we can now take forward the significantly correlated variables into this regression analysis. So this video is really about running a regression model in steps. So it's called a hierarchical regression analysis. So the question is, which order do you enter the variables, or which order do you enter sets or clusters of variables? So the order that you see on that table is the order that we will enter them. But usually you need a reason to have an order. So the reason in this case would be in terms of the research questions. So the main research question might be, to what extent attitudinal variables predict the outcome. So what percentage of variance in the outcome is explained. And the next question then is, to what extent personality variables add to that explanation, and to what extent behavioral variables add to a model which includes personality and attitudinal variables. So what's the amount of variance explained by attitudinal variables? What's the amount of variance explained by dispositional variables? What's the additional variance explained there when you add personality? And what's the additional variance explained when you add behavioral variables? So the regression model could be viewed like this, where you have 3 steps, and the dotted lines will represent variables that do not uniquely predict the outcome. So we can see that this will reduce the number of variables in the regression model. So we will really remove any variables that do not uniquely predict the outcome, despite the finding that all of these listed variables here are correlated with the outcome. So when we run the regression analysis, you'll see these variables appear as significant and non-significant, and it will become more apparent when you actually see the SPSS output. But this reduces to this, obviously. So we've got three models, three steps or 3 stages. At step 2, the personality variables that were correlated were entered, obviously. Conscientiousness and neuroticism were not correlated with the outcome initially, so we didn't enter them here. However, there is some literature to suggest that combinations of conscientiousness and neuroticism, as in this note, so you might want to pause the video and have a read of this, but there is some evidence to suggest that people who are high in conscientiousness and high in neuroticism in combination might act in a more healthy way. So their healthy lifestyle behavior might be different. So we would want to add in these combinations as well into this step. So how do we do that? Well, what we can do is we can look at the conscientiousness and neuroticism scores. So if I go to SPSS, so if I go back to the raw data and I'd go to analyze descriptive statistics and frequencies. So I just want to know what the middle score is for conscientiousness, the median, and the middle score for neuroticism. So if I select frequencies and then select neuroticism and conscientiousness here as the variables that I want to look at, and then under statistics I'm just going to ask for the median. So the median is the middle score, such that half of the respondents will score above it and half will score below it. It's the middle score in the distribution. So it will divide the distribution in two, so we can split people into people who score above or below the median on conscientiousness and above or below the median on neuroticism. So if I click on continue and then run that, we get a frequency table here. So the median for neuroticism is 22 and the middle score for conscientiousness is 31. So I now know what the two median scores are for those two variables. So if I wanted to create a new variable for and classify people using these middle scores, then the syntax for that is in the syntax file. This has already been run, so you don't need to do it, but I'm going to just take you through it. So if we look at conscientiousness, for example, here, this is how the conscientiousness variable was computed. So 4 of the items had initially been recoded and reverse scored. So we recode those items into new items. And then we can get a reliability of that scale once we add all the items in. So we've got 12 items for conscientiousness there. We've got 12 items for neuroticism, 12 items for extroversion, and so on. But you can see that variable 1, question 35R, is a reverse scored item. Question 3010R, and so on. So these are the variables, the 12 variables that we enter. That gives us our Cronbach's alpha, and then we can compute a new single total score for each individual using this statement. Compute conscientiousness equals these items added up. And then, now that I know the conscientiousness median is 31, I can say in syntax here, if the conscientiousness score is less than 31, which is below the median, and the person's neuroticism score is less than 22, which is below the median, then the personality group to which they belong is group 1. So this group here are people who score below the median on conscientiousness and below the median on neuroticism. So this is a group of people who score low on C and low on N. If a person's conscientiousness score is greater than or equal to 31, which is above the median, so they score high in conscientiousness and they score below the median on neuroticism, then they're in personality group 2. So this group are people who score high in conscientiousness and low on neuroticism. The third personality group is people who score low in conscientiousness and high on neuroticism. And the last group, group 4, score high on both conscientiousness and neuroticism. So both of their scores are greater than or equal to their median. So we've got a new variable here called personality group. Okay, pers group, and it has 4 variables, or 4 value labels, sorry, and the value labels here are in here as well. So group 1 is low C and low N. Group 2 is labelled high C, low N. Group 3 is labelled low C, high N. And the final group 4 is labelled high C, high N. So if you run that, it will create a new personality variable group, and then people will be allocated to one of 4 conditions, or one of 4 groupings. So having run that analysis, if I go to the data file just to show you that variable, go to variable view and scroll down here, just have a quick look at the variables. These are all the items obviously at the top. You will see a personality group variable here, number 360. So I'll just go to variable data view. If I look at this in data view below, this is the variable personality group. So some people were not coded into any group because they were missing numbers or scores on conscientiousness or neuroticism. These people are grouped into group 1. These people are in group 2. These people are in group 3, and these people are in group 4. So I've just ordered them here so that you can see that. So this is a new variable that we've computed using that syntax. Now, if I just go back to the syntax a second, we can't use a categorical variable with 4 levels in regression. We've got to then compute new variables again called dummy coded variables. So if you're in personality group 1 here, then we need a dummy coded variable that indicates that you're in that group or not in that group. So this syntax below does that. So if personality group equals 1, so if that variable had a value of 1, then we're going to call this new variable group, it will have a value of 1, and if personality group was greater than or equal to 2, then that's 2, 3 or 4 basically. So if you're in group 2, 3 or 4, then you score 0 on this variable. Similarly, if we'll compute a new group 2 variable here, dummy coded variable, and if you score 2 on the personality group, then you score yes in this group membership. And if you score if you score 3 or more, greater than or equal to 3, that's 3 or 4, you're not in that group, you get 0. And if you'd scored 1 on personality group, you're also not in that group. So this syntax here creates 4 dummy variables. And when you run that using the green button here, the variables look like this on the data file. So here's personality group. So this person was in group 1. So for the dummy coded variable group 1, this person's in group 1. Again, this person's in group 1. So these people are all in group 1. This person below the yellow here is in group 2, so they're not in group 1. So all of these people get zeros on that variable. So they're either 1s or 0s. For group 2, these people score 0 and these 2s here become 1s. So for group 2, anyone who's in group 2 gets a 1 on that variable. So you can see the ones here, and then all knots and ones here. For group 3, these are all knots all the way down until you get to here. And you'll see this person was in the original personality group 3. So these people are all in group 3. If you're not in group 3 on that variable, you score 0. So these people for group 4 are in this group. So we now have 4 dummy coded variables, and we can enter any 3 of them into the regression. We can't enter all 4, but we can enter any 3. So whatever group you don't put into the regression analysis, that group becomes the reference group. That group becomes the group to which the other 3 are compared. So what we're going to do in the regression is at the step 2, when we enter personality variables, we're going to enter these grouping variables here, which are combinations of neuroticism and conscientiousness. And we're going to leave out one of them, and we're going to leave out group 4. So if group 3 produces a significant beta coefficient, that means that group 3 is significantly different to group 4, the reference group. If group 2 is significant, it means it's significantly different from group 4. And if group 1 has a significant beta, it's significantly different from group 4. And significantly different in terms of healthy lifestyle behaviour scores.